Thank you for choosing Wisdom Life, where tender history cradles you towards sleep. Tonight, we slip out of the clatter and glare of the present and wander into a hush older than memory, a realm of stone keeps, moon-polished mail, and corridors murmuring with candle flame. Yet this is no chronicle of clashing steel or banners drenched in crimson. No, tonight we linger in the hush between heartbeats, and the soft exhalations after battle, in the small, unnoticed hours when even the fiercest soul remembers he is, above all, a man. Before the tale unspools, permit me, gently, to guide you into stillness. Dim the lights, if you can. Let your eyelids sink like velvet curtains. Rest your palms beside you, open as if to catch drifting snow. Unclasp whatever tightness clings to your shoulders, your jaw, the cage of your ribs. We will not chase thoughts tonight, we'll only watch them glide, pale and quiet, across the dark. And if your heart feels light enough, I'd be grateful for a small offering in the comments below, just a word or two about where you are and the hour that glows on your clock. A trifle, truly, yet knowing that another listener breathes in time with you, oceans away, somehow rounds the edges of the night. So press play, and let the outer world fold itself into silence. Tonight we walk beside a medieval knight, not as legend, not as hero, but as a man who, like you, once closed his eyes and dreamed. Let's begin. Part 1. The Morning Rituals and Preparation for Battle. Let's begin with the very first moment of the day, when the world is still wrapped in sleep, and only the sky knows what's about to unfold. It's just before dawn, and in a quiet corner of an old stone castle nestled between rolling green hills, a soft light begins to stir behind the wooden shutters. A single candle flickers to life in one of the towers, casting long shadows against the cold stone walls. Somewhere nearby, a rooster calls out into the hush of morning, as if reminding the land that another day has arrived. Inside the chamber where our knight rests, the air is cool but not harsh. The heavy woolen curtains have kept the chill at bay through the night, and now, as the first rays of sunlight peek over the horizon, they are gently drawn aside by a young page who moves quietly across the floor. He does not speak, there is no need to. The silence of early morning is sacred, and even the smallest sound feels like it might wake something more than just the sleeping man in the bed. Sir William de Clare stirs beneath layers of thick blankets, his breath visible in the cool air as he slowly opens his eyes. For a moment, he doesn't move. He simply lies there, listening to the quiet around him, feeling the weight of his own body as it returns to the waking world. His limbs are stiff from the previous day's training, but the discomfort is familiar, almost comforting. It reminds him that he is alive, that he has made it through another night, and that today will bring its own rhythm, steady, measured, and full of small rituals that keep his spirit grounded. He sits up slowly, stretching his arms above his head, letting the blood flow back into his hands and feet. The fire in the hearth is already lit, though it burns low, casting a warm glow that dances along the edges of the room. The scent of dry wood and herbs fills the space, a mix of lavender and rosemary, used to keep the air fresh and soothing. There is no rush here, no urgency. Time flows differently in this place, especially in the morning. A basin of water waits on a small table near the foot of the bed, steaming slightly in the cool air. The young page steps forward, offering a cloth and a gentle nod. Sir William takes it without a word and wipes his face, letting the coolness awaken his senses. He then dips his fingers into the water and runs them through his short-cropped hair, smoothing it back from his forehead. This simple act grounds him, It reminds him of the days long ago when he was just a boy, learning how to be a man, learning how to serve, learning how to carry himself with honor. There is no mirror in the room, but he knows what he looks like: strong jawline, deep-set eyes that have seen both joy and sorrow, and a beard that is beginning to show hints of silver. He does not mind the signs of age. They are marks of time well spent, of battles fought not only on the field but within himself. As he rises from the bed, the creak of the wooden floorboards beneath his feet is barely audible. He walks slowly to the window, pushing open the shutter just enough to let in the crisp morning air. Outside, the world is still waking up. The fields stretch out before him, bathed in a soft golden light, and the distant silhouette of the forest sways gently in the breeze. Birds call to one another from the rooftops and trees, their songs weaving together into a melody that belongs only to this hour. He stands there for a while, simply breathing. Not thinking too much. Just being. And in this moment, he is not a warrior, not a nobleman, not a leader of men. He is simply a man, standing in the quiet of morning, watching the world come to life. After a few minutes, he steps away from the window and makes his way to a small chest tucked into the corner of the room. With practiced ease, he lifts the lid and pulls out a clean tunic, a simple garment of coarse linen, dyed in earthy tones. He slips it over his head, fastens the laces at the neck, and adjusts the sleeves so they fall comfortably around his arms. Over this, he places a heavier woolen cloak, lined with fur to keep the morning chill at bay. The page has already laid out his boots near the hearth, warmed by the fire's lingering heat. Sir William eases his feet into them, tying the laces carefully. Each movement is deliberate, unhurried, a ritual in itself. He knows that once the sun climbs higher and the day unfolds, there will be little time for such quiet moments. But for now, everything moves at a pace that allows him to feel present, to savor the simplicity of living. He turns to the page and offers a small smile, not a command, not an order, but a gesture of gratitude. The boy nods in return and follows him out into the hallway, where the castle is slowly coming alive with the sounds of footsteps, whispered greetings, and the clinking of metal as armor is prepared for the day ahead. As they descend the spiral staircase, the scent of bread baking in the kitchen reaches them, warm, yeasty, inviting. Sir William's stomach growls softly, and he allows himself a small chuckle. Even knights must eat, after all. And today, breakfast awaits. The dining hall is not yet crowded, but a few others have risen early, fellow knights, squires, and servants moving about with purpose. A long wooden table stretches across the center of the room, already set with bowls of porridge, fresh fruit, and slices of dark bread. At the far end, a large fireplace crackles with flame, warming the space and casting dancing shadows across the stone walls. He finds a seat near the fire, where the warmth seeps into his bones. A servant brings him a bowl of hot porridge mixed with honey and dried berries, and he eats slowly, savoring each bite. Around him, quiet conversation drifts through the air, not urgent, not loud, but filled with the kind of camaraderie that comes from shared mornings and shared lives. This is not the grand feast of kings or the hurried meals of battlefields. No, this is something quieter, something steadier. It is the kind of meal that nourishes not just the body, but the soul. And as he eats, Sir William lets his mind wander, not to war, not to duty, but to the simple pleasure of being fed, of being warm, of being among those who understand the weight of a sword and the softness of a sunrise. When he finishes, he sets his spoon down gently, folds his hands in his lap, and closes his eyes for a moment. Just a moment. Enough time to breathe, to feel grateful, to remind himself that even in the life of a knight, there are pockets of peace, tiny islands of calm in a sea of responsibility. Then, with a quiet nod to the servant who brought his meal, he rises from the table and steps outside into the morning air once more. The day is truly beginning now, and with it, the slow rhythm of preparation for what lies ahead. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment. For now, take a deep breath, let your body sink deeper into comfort, and allow yourself to stay here, in this quiet morning, beside this quiet man, as he moves gently through the start of his day. Outside the castle walls, the morning is beginning to stretch its arms and yawn into full wakefulness. A soft breeze moves through the courtyard, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and fresh hay. The sky has shifted from a deep indigo to a pale blue, streaked with wisps of cloud that catch the light like threads of silver. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings, not sharply, but gently, as though it too is still waking up. Sir William walks across the stone path toward the stables, his boots making quiet echoes against the worn surface. The page follows a few steps behind, silent but attentive, ready to assist if needed. Around them, life in the castle begins to stir, servants stepping out of their quarters, knights stretching their backs after a long night's rest, and stable hands already at work brushing down the horses or checking the harnesses. The stables are built of rough-hewn timber, their roofs sloped and covered in moss where the rain has lingered. As Sir William steps inside, the warm, familiar scent of straw and leather fills the air. He breathes it in deeply, letting it settle in his chest like an old memory. This place has always felt like home to him, more than the great hall, more than even his own chamber. Here, among the steady presence of the animals, he feels most himself. He moves slowly between the stalls, pausing to greet each horse by name. There's Rowan, a strong mare with a dark coat and gentle eyes, Bramble, a young stallion still learning patience, and finally, his own steed, a tall, broad-shouldered warhorse named Thorin. Thorin lifts his head when he hears footsteps and lets out a low, welcoming snort. Sir William reaches out and runs a hand along the animal's neck, feeling the warmth of his breath against his fingers. "You're ready for the day, aren't you?" he murmurs, voice low and calm. "So am I." Thorin nudges his shoulder gently, as if to remind him that they've shared many mornings just like this one. And indeed, they have. Together, they have ridden through summer fields and winter snow, across battlefields and peaceful villages alike. They understand each other without needing words. A stable hand brings a brush and a small bowl of oil used to keep the saddle supple. Sir William takes the brush and begins grooming Thorin himself, a simple act, but one filled with meaning. It's not that he can't let others do this task for him, he could, and often does, but there's something grounding about doing it himself. It reminds him that leadership is not only about giving orders, but also about knowing how to serve quietly, humbly, and with care. As he brushes, he talks softly to Thorin, not about battles or strategies, but about the morning, the weather, the way the light falls across the hills today. He speaks as though Thorin understands every word, which, in some ways, he probably does. Horses are wise creatures, and they sense the moods of those around them. Right now, Sir William is calm, centered, and present, and so is Thorin. When the grooming is done, he checks the saddle, running his fingers over the leather seams and ensuring the girth is secure. Everything must be perfect before they ride, not because he fears failure, but because preparation is part of respect. For the horse, for the land, for the day itself. Nearby, the page stands waiting with a bundle of cloth, the knight's armor, carefully cleaned and polished overnight. Sir William turns to him and nods, and together they begin the slow process of dressing for the day ahead. First comes the padded undergarment, thick linen stitched with layers of wool to protect against the cold and provide a buffer beneath the metal. Then the cuirass, fitted snugly over his torso, followed by the vambraces on his arms and the greaves on his legs. Each piece is fastened with practiced ease, each motion deliberate and unhurried. There is no rush here. The armor is not a burden, but a companion, heavy, yes, but familiar, trusted. As the final pieces are put into place, Sir William stands still for a moment, adjusting his posture. The weight settles around him like an old friend, not oppressive, not uncomfortable, but grounding. It reminds him of who he is and what he carries, not just the armor, but the responsibility of being a protector, a leader, a man of honor. The page offers him his gauntlets, and he slides them onto his hands, flexing his fingers to ensure they fit well. Then, last of all, he lifts the helm and places it over his head. The world narrows slightly, the edges blur, the sounds become muffled, but he knows this feeling well. Soon, he will adjust, and everything will feel natural again. With the armor fully on, he steps back outside into the courtyard, where the sun has risen higher now, casting golden light across the stone walls. The day is truly awake now, and so is he. Around him, other knights are preparing as well, some standing in pairs, talking quietly, others walking their horses in circles to loosen their muscles. There is a rhythm to all of this, a quiet coordination that comes from years of shared experience. No one rushes. No one shouts. Everyone moves with purpose, but with calm. A squire approaches with a wooden cask of water and a small cup carved from oak. Sir William takes it with both hands and drinks slowly, letting the cool liquid soothe his throat and refresh his body. He hands the cup back with a nod of thanks and then looks up at the sky once more. There will be time for battle later, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps not for several days. But for now, there is only this, the morning, the preparations, the steady rhythm of life unfolding in its own time. And as he stands there, surrounded by the quiet energy of the castle, he allows himself a moment of gratitude. Not for glory, not for victory, but simply for this, for the ability to rise with the sun, to feel the weight of armor on his shoulders, to hear the wind in the trees, and to know that, for this moment at least, everything is exactly as it should be. So take a breath with him now. Let your body relax a little more. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across the sky. And if sleep finds you before we continue, then may it be a peaceful one, wrapped in the quiet strength of a morning long ago. Part 2, Breakfast and Family Moments. After the quiet rituals of the morning and the slow, careful preparations for the day ahead, there comes a moment that feels like a soft landing, a pause in the rhythm of things, where time slows even further and the world seems to breathe a little deeper. This is the moment when Sir William steps away from the stables, removes his helm, and walks back toward the inner courtyard of the castle, not as a knight preparing for battle, but as a man returning home. The air has warmed slightly now, carrying with it the scent of fresh bread, simmering herbs, and the faint smokiness of wood burning in the hearth. The sun is higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the stone paths, and somewhere nearby, a child's laughter floats through the air like a melody that belongs only to this hour. He moves at an unhurried pace, his armor still on, though he loosens the straps around his shoulders just enough to let his breath settle more comfortably. His boots make soft echoes against the worn stone floor as he enters the family quarters, a quieter part of the castle, tucked away from the clang of swords and the steady rhythm of training. Here, life unfolds differently. It moves with the gentle pulse of daily moments, the kind that don't make history books, but that shape hearts nonetheless. As he steps inside, a warm breeze brushes past him, carrying the scent of something familiar, stewed apples, cinnamon, and the earthy warmth of roasted grains. The kitchen is already alive with movement, though not in a frantic way. Servants move with practiced ease, stirring pots, kneading dough, or setting wooden bowls onto the table. But it's not just the servants who are here. Waiting near the fireplace, wrapped in a woolen shawl despite the rising heat of the room, is Lady Margaret, his wife. She turns as she hears his footsteps, and her face lights up with a quiet smile, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be deeply felt. She doesn't rush to greet him, nor does she speak right away. Instead, she simply looks at him, taking in the sight of her husband after another morning spent in duty, in preparation, and quiet strength. And then, without a word, she steps forward and places a hand on his arm. "You're early," she says softly, her voice low and smooth, like the hush before sleep. "I wanted to be," he replies, removing one of his gloves so he can reach for her hand. They stand like that for a moment, just holding each other's hands, not speaking, not needing to. In this place, in this moment, they are not a nobleman and his lady, not a warrior and his supporter. They are simply two people who have walked many seasons together, who know each other's silences as well as their words. A small wooden door creaks open behind them, and a pair of tiny feet pitter-patter across the floor. A moment later, a young boy appears, no older than 5, wearing a simple tunic that's slightly too big for him, and eyes wide with excitement. "Father," he exclaims, running forward and throwing his arms around Sir William's legs. The knight smiles and bends down slowly, careful with his armor, and lifts the boy into his arms. The child giggles as he's lifted high, then leans in close, resting his head against his father's shoulder. There's no hesitation in his trust, only the comfort of knowing he is safe, held, loved. "Did you sleep well?" Sir William asks, brushing a lock of hair from the boy's forehead. "Yes," the child replies, yawning slightly as if to prove how restful the night had been. Lady Margaret watches them for a moment, then gently takes the boy from her husband's arms, cradling him with the ease of someone who has done this countless times before. "Go on," she tells Sir William, nodding toward the dining area. "Your breakfast is waiting." He nods and thanks and makes his way to the long wooden table that sits near the hearth. A chair has already been pulled out for him, not by a servant, but by his own son, who had run ahead and climbed onto a stool to push the chair forward with all the strength his small arms could muster. Sir William chuckles and ruffles the boy's hair as he sits down. "You didn't have to do that," he says. "But I wanted to," the child replies proudly. And that, perhaps, is the heart of this entire moment, not what must be done, but what is chosen. Not the weight of duty, but the lightness of love. Before him, a bowl of porridge rests beside a slice of dark bread, a small dish of honey, and a cup of warm spiced milk. He picks up the spoon and begins to eat slowly, savoring the warmth that spreads through his chest. Around him, life continues, his wife pouring tea, his son dipping bits of bread into melted butter, the servants moving quietly in and out of the room. There is no urgency here. No need to rush. Just the steady rhythm of a morning unfolding in its own time. Outside, the wind rustles the leaves of the old oak tree that stands near the garden, and the sound drifts in through the open window, soft, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. The fire crackles gently behind him, sending waves of warmth across his back. Even in his armor, he feels at peace. This is not the peace of victory, nor the peace that follows war. This is the peace of ordinary moments, the kind that slips quietly into your bones and reminds you that life is not only about battles fought, but also about meals shared, laughter heard, and hands held. And as he eats, as he listens to his son chatter about dreams he had during the night, as he watches his wife pour tea with the same grace she always has, Sir William allows himself to sink deeper into this feeling. Because sometimes, the greatest strength is not found in lifting a sword, but in being fully present in the quiet moments that make up a life. So take a deep breath with him now. Let your body relax a little more. Let your thoughts drift like smoke curling upward from the fire. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the warmth of a morning meal shared among those who care for one another. As the morning continues to unfold in its own gentle rhythm, the dining hall settles into a quiet kind of fullness, not loud or crowded, but filled with presence. The warmth of the fire still lingers in the air, mingling with the scent of warm bread and simmering herbs that rise from the kitchen. Outside, birds call to one another from the rooftops and trees, their songs weaving together into a melody that belongs only to this hour. Sir William finishes his meal slowly, savoring each bite as though it's more than just nourishment, as though it's a reminder that even in the life of a warrior, there are moments meant for nothing more than comfort. He sets his spoon down beside the empty bowl and leans back slightly in his chair, letting his body relax after the steady pace of the morning. His son, still seated across from him, dips a piece of bread into a small dish of honey and brings it to his mouth with careful concentration. His little fingers are sticky now, and he wipes them on the cloth napkin beside his plate, leaving behind faint golden smudges. He looks up at his father with wide eyes, curious and full of wonder. "Father," he begins, his voice soft but eager. "Did you fight yesterday?" Sir William smiles gently, shaking his head. "No, my boy. There was no battle yesterday." The child considers this for a moment before asking, "Then what did you do?" "I trained," Sir William replies, reaching out to brush a crumb from his son's cheek. "I practiced with my sword. I rode Thorin through the fields. And then I came home to be with you." The boy nods, satisfied with the answer, and goes back to eating his bread. It seems enough for him, knowing that his father was near, even if he wasn't fighting. Lady Margaret watches them both for a moment, her expression calm and warm. She reaches out and places a hand over her husband's, giving it a light squeeze before turning her attention back to her own cup of tea. "You should rest for a while," she says softly. "You've been up since before dawn." He nods, appreciating the suggestion but also knowing that rest is not always something that comes easily. Still, he knows better than to ignore the wisdom in her words, especially when they come wrapped in care. "I will," he promises. "After I spend a little more time here." She smiles at that, understanding the unspoken meaning behind his words. Sometimes, rest isn't found in sleep alone. Sometimes, it's found in simply being present, and sitting quietly among those who love you, and allowing yourself to feel grounded again. A servant steps forward with a fresh pot of spiced milk and refills Sir William's cup without a word. He thanks her with a small nod and lifts the cup to his lips, letting the warmth spread through him once more. Around him, life moves at its own pace, unhurried, thoughtful, intentional. Near the window, a young maid folds freshly laundered linens, stacking them neatly on a wooden bench. In the kitchen, a cook stirs a large pot of stew that will later be shared among the castle's residents. Somewhere nearby, a dog lies curled in a patch of sunlight, its breathing slow and steady, its dreams hidden behind closed eyes. It's in moments like these that the world feels balanced, where duty and family, strength and gentleness, all exist in harmony. Sir William takes another sip of his drink and lets his gaze drift toward the window, where the sky has turned a deeper shade of blue. A breeze passes through the open shutters, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers from the garden below. He closes his eyes for a moment, listening to the quiet around him, the soft clinking of dishes, the rustle of fabric, the distant sound of hooves against stone. And in that silence, he allows himself to remember. He remembers mornings long ago, when he was just a boy, learning how to hold a sword, how to ride a horse, how to carry himself with honor. He remembers the first time he put on armor, how heavy it felt, how uncertain he had been about whether he could truly live up to the expectations placed upon him. But now, years later, he understands that being a knight is not only about battles fought or victories won. It is also about the way he holds his son's hand, the way he listens to his wife's quiet wisdom, the way he sits in stillness and allows himself to feel gratitude for the simple things, for food, for shelter, for love. These are the things that shape a man more deeply than any war ever could. He opens his eyes again and finds his son watching him, curiosity still lingering in his gaze. "Will you take me riding today?" the boy asks. Sir William smiles. "If the weather stays fair, yes." The child beams at the answer, clearly pleased with the promise. He slides off his stool and runs toward the door, eager to go find something else to occupy his morning. Lady Margaret watches him go, her expression soft, and then turns back to her husband. "He misses you when you're gone," she says quietly. "I know," he replies. "And I miss him too." There is no bitterness in his voice, no regret, only the quiet acknowledgement of a truth that exists between them. Being a knight means being away at times, means answering calls to duty, means walking paths that aren't always lined with the comfort of home. But it also means returning, always returning, to the people who wait, who understand, who love without condition. And that, perhaps, is the greatest reward of all. Sir William sets his cup down and pushes his chair back slightly, preparing to rise. But before he does, he leans in and brushes a kiss against his wife's temple, a gesture of affection that needs no explanation. "Thank you," he murmurs. "For what?" she asks, smiling. "For this," he says simply. And with that, he rises to his feet, feeling lighter than he did before, not because the weight of his armor has lessened, but because the weight of his heart has settled into something peaceful. He turns toward the doorway, ready to step back into the day, but not before pausing for a moment to watch the sunlight spill across the floor, casting long shadows along the walls. It is a beautiful morning, quiet, steady, full of small blessings. So wherever you are, dear listener, take a deep breath now. Let your body sink deeper into comfort. Let your thoughts drift like leaves carried by the wind. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the warmth of a morning shared among those who care for one another. Part 3, Journey to the Battlefield, the Quiet Before the Storm. The morning has passed gently into afternoon now, not with a sudden shift, but with the slow turning of light and shadow across the land. The sky remains clear, though a few soft clouds drift lazily overhead, catching the golden glow of the sun before moving on toward the horizon. A breeze stirs the leaves of the trees, carrying with it the scent of earth and wildflowers, as if nature itself is whispering a reminder that even in times of war, there are still moments of quiet beauty. Sir William stands at the edge of the castle courtyard, his armor fully fastened once more, his sword resting at his side. The time for rest has ended, and the day now moves forward with a different rhythm, slower perhaps, but filled with purpose. He breathes deeply, letting the cool air settle into his lungs, feeling the familiar weight of duty return like an old friend. Around him, preparations are underway. Horses are being saddled, weapons checked one last time, messages exchanged in hushed voices between knights and squires. There is no rush, no panic, only the steady coordination of men who know what must be done and who have learned to carry themselves through such moments with calm resolve. Thorin stands nearby, already prepared for the journey ahead. His coat gleams in the sunlight, his muscles relaxed but alert. Sir William steps toward him and places a hand on the horse's neck, feeling the warmth beneath his palm. Thorin turns his head slightly, acknowledging the presence of his rider with a quiet snort. "You're ready," Sir William murmurs, rubbing the horse's muzzle gently. "So am I." He climbs onto Thorin's back with practiced ease, adjusting the reins and settling into the familiar rhythm of being mounted. Around him, other knights do the same, forming a quiet procession that will soon begin its journey across the land. Lady Margaret appears beside him then, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders, her expression calm but filled with something deeper, pride, concern, and perhaps a touch of sorrow. She reaches up and places a hand over his, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Come home safely," she says softly. "I always do," he replies, though his voice carries no arrogance, only quiet certainty. She smiles at that, though it doesn't quite reach her eyes. Then, without another word, she steps back, allowing him the space to move forward. His son runs up just in time, waving excitedly as he watches his father prepare to leave. "Will you come back before dinner?" the boy calls out. Sir William looks down at him and smiles. "If the wind is kind," he says. "And if the road treats us well." The child nods solemnly, as though he understands the meaning behind those words, that some things cannot be promised, only hoped for. With a final glance toward his family, Sir William turns his gaze forward, toward the path that stretches beyond the castle walls. The road ahead is long, winding through fields of tall grass and pastures where sheep graze peacefully under the open sky. In the distance, the forest begins to rise, dark green and deep, its trees swaying gently in the breeze. It is not yet a battlefield they ride toward, but merely the beginning of the journey, a quiet passage through the land that belongs to both peace and war, depending on the moment. The group sets off slowly, their horses' hooves making soft echoes against the stone path before transitioning to the softer sound of dirt and grass beneath their feet. The world around them feels wide and open, untouched by conflict for now. Birds fly overhead, circling lazily before disappearing into the blue expanse above. As they ride, Sir William lets his gaze wander, taking in the hills that roll gently into the distance, the way the sunlight catches on the edges of the trees, the distant shimmer of a stream winding its way through the valley below. There is a beauty in this land that exists outside of battle, a quiet strength that speaks to the resilience of life itself. He allows himself to breathe more deeply now, letting go of any tension that may have settled in his chest during the morning. This part of the journey is not about rushing forward or preparing for conflict. It is about moving with intention, with awareness, with gratitude for the world that still surrounds him. Beside him, Sir Richard, one of his closest companions, rides in silence, his posture relaxed, his eyes scanning the landscape with the same quiet appreciation. They do not speak at first, simply riding side by side, sharing in the unspoken understanding that sometimes the most meaningful conversations are the ones that happen without words. Eventually, Sir Richard breaks the silence. "It's strange," he says, his voice low and thoughtful. "How the land can feel so peaceful, even when we ride toward something else entirely." Sir William nods slowly, considering the truth in those words. Yes, he agrees. But maybe that's how it should be. Maybe peace should always surround us, even when we don't realize it. Sir Richard chuckles softly, shaking his head. You've always had a way with words. Sir William offers a small smile, but says nothing more. Sometimes, the best answers are the ones left unspoken. Behind them, the rest of the company follows in a steady line, their movements coordinated but unhurried. Some talk quietly among themselves, others remain silent, lost in their own thoughts. Each man carries his own reasons for being here, his own hopes and fears, but in this moment, they all share the same path. The road continues to unfold before them, stretching across the countryside like a ribbon woven through the fabric of the earth. Time seems to stretch along with it, not rushing forward, but flowing gently, like a river that knows where it must go but chooses to take its time getting there. And so they ride, not toward glory, not toward conquest, but simply toward whatever comes next. As they continue their journey, the landscape begins to shift ever so slightly, not in a dramatic way, but with subtle changes that speak of the world slowly transforming around them. The rolling hills give way to flatter terrain, where the grass grows taller and sways gently in the breeze like waves upon a quiet sea. In the distance, small clusters of wildflowers bloom along the roadside, purple violets, golden daisies, and soft pink blossoms that seem to glow under the afternoon sun. Sir William allows himself to take it all in, the colors, the movement, the stillness that exists even in motion. There is something grounding about being on horseback, about feeling the rhythm of Thorin's steady gait beneath him, about knowing that for now, there are no enemies to face, no orders to follow, no urgency pulling him forward. For now, there is only this, the road, the sky, and the quiet companionship of those who ride beside him. The air has warmed slightly since they began their journey, though a gentle wind continues to move through the fields, carrying with it the scent of dry grass and distant rain. It reminds Sir William of childhood summers spent running through the meadows behind his family's home, of chasing butterflies, of lying in the tall grass and watching clouds drift across the sky, of feeling as though time had no end and the world belonged to him. He closes his eyes briefly, letting the memory settle into his chest. It is strange how certain moments from the past return unannounced, not forcefully, but softly, like an old song played on a familiar instrument. And perhaps that is what makes them powerful, not their loudness, but their quiet ability to remind you of who you once were, and who you still are beneath all the layers of duty and armor. A bird calls out from somewhere above, a long, melodic note that echoes through the open space before fading into silence again. He looks up, following the sound until he sees the creature soaring high against the blue canvas of the sky. It circles once, then twice, before disappearing beyond the horizon, leaving behind only the whisper of its wings. He watches it go, feeling a strange sense of kinship with the bird, both of them moving forward, neither quite knowing what lies ahead, yet continuing anyway. Beside him, Sir Richard speaks again, his voice calm and unhurried. "Do you remember the first time we rode together?" he asks. Sir William smiles faintly at the question. "I do," he replies. "You were barely older than your squire is now." Sir Richard chuckles, shaking his head. "And you were already a knight," he says. "It felt like you carried the weight of the world back then." "I did," Sir William admits. "And I still do. But I've learned that some burdens become lighter when shared." There is a pause between them, not an awkward one, but the kind that feels full of understanding. Sometimes, friendship doesn't need to be loud or filled with grand gestures. Sometimes, it simply exists in the quiet spaces between words, and the way two people can ride side by side without needing to say anything at all. Behind them, the rest of the company moves steadily forward, their presence a quiet reassurance. Some of them hum softly to themselves, others speak in hushed tones, sharing stories or memories of their own. A young squire rides near the back, his posture stiff with nervous energy, his eyes darting from side to side as if trying to memorize every detail of the journey. Sir William notices him and slows his pace slightly so that he can fall back and ride beside the boy for a moment. "You're tense," he observes gently. The squire nods quickly, gripping the reins a little tighter. "I don't want to make any mistakes," he admits. Sir William offers him a reassuring smile. "There will always be things you don't know yet," he says. "But there is no shame in that. What matters is that you keep learning, and that you stay present in each moment." The boy considers this for a while before asking, "How do you stay calm before battle?" Sir William thinks carefully before answering. "It's not always easy," he admits. "But I remind myself that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing to move forward, even when fear is there." The squire nods slowly, absorbing the words. Then, after a moment, he asks another question. "What do you think about during times like this?" Sir William glances toward the horizon again, watching the sunlight dance across the fields. "I think about the land," he says. "About the trees, the rivers, the sky. About the people waiting for us to return. About the life that continues, even when we ride toward war." The boy listens quietly, then finally says, "I hope I can feel that way too, someday." "You will," Sir William tells him. "In time." With that, he nudges Thorn forward once more, allowing the young squire to ride in thought while he returns to his own quiet reflection. The road continues to stretch before them, winding gently through the countryside. The sun is beginning to lower in the sky now, casting longer shadows across the land, turning everything into shades of gold and amber. The light feels softer somehow, as though the day itself is preparing to slow down, to make room for rest. They pass through a small village nestled between two hills, a quiet place where smoke rises lazily from chimneys and children run barefoot through the dirt streets. A woman stands outside her home, hanging laundry on a line, her movements slow and deliberate. She pauses when she sees the group of knights passing by, offering a small nod of recognition before returning to her task. No one rushes to greet them, no one shouts or runs. Life here continues as it always does, simple, steady, untouched by the weight of war, for now. Sir William watches the village fade behind them as they continue onward, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for places like this, places that remind him why he fights, why he rides, why he carries the sword at his side. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the quiet lives that unfold in these corners of the world, lives that deserve to remain undisturbed for as long as possible. And so they ride, not with haste, not with fear, but with purpose wrapped in peace. So wherever you are, dear listener, take a deep breath now. Let your body sink deeper into comfort. Let your thoughts drift like leaves carried by the wind. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the quiet strength of a journey taken through peaceful lands. Part 4, On the Battlefield, the Quiet Before the Storm. The land begins to change as they near their destination, not dramatically, but in subtle ways that speak of something larger unfolding ahead. The gentle rolling hills give way to flatter terrain, where the grass grows shorter and the soil darker from frequent passage. In the distance, the horizon stretches wide and open, offering an unbroken view of the field that will soon bear witness to what is to come. Sir William sits tall in the saddle, his posture steady, though his gaze remains soft. He does not look ahead with tension or anticipation, nor does he allow himself to be pulled into thoughts of battle just yet. Instead, he lets his mind rest on the present moment, the rhythm of Thorin's hooves against the earth, the warmth of the afternoon sun on his back, the quiet presence of his companions beside him. They ride in a long, deliberate line, their figures dark against the golden light of the late afternoon. The wind moves gently through the field, carrying with it the scent of dry grass and distant rain, as if nature itself is preparing for what is about to unfold. Somewhere nearby, a single bird calls out, its voice high and clear, echoing across the empty space before fading into silence again. As they approach the battlefield, the first signs of the opposing army begin to appear, not in the form of clashing swords or charging horses, but in the quiet gathering of men and banners on the far side of the field. Tents are pitched in neat rows, fires burn low in small pits, and knights stand in clusters, speaking in hushed tones. It is not yet chaos. It is not yet war. It is only the waiting, the stillness before the storm. Sir William slows his pace slightly, allowing himself to take it all in without rushing forward. This is not the first time he has stood at the edge of such a moment, and yet, each time feels different, shaped by the people around him, by the sky above, by the weight of choices made and yet to come. He glances toward Sir Richard, who rides beside him, his expression unreadable but calm. "It always surprises me," Sir Richard says quietly, "how peaceful everything seems, until it isn't." Sir William nods slowly, understanding exactly what his friend means. There is a strange kind of beauty in this pause, in the way the world holds its breath before action begins, and the way time seems to stretch just a little longer than usual, as if giving everyone one last chance to breathe, to think, to feel. A young squire approaches on horseback, his face pale beneath his helm. "Sir William," he says, his voice tight with nervous energy. "They've seen us. They're forming lines now." Sir William offers the boy a reassuring nod. "Then we do the same," he replies calmly. Without hesitation, he lifts a hand and signals to the others, directing them to spread out into formation. There is no urgency in his movements, only the practiced ease of someone who has done this many times before. The group responds immediately, shifting into place with quiet coordination, their presence growing stronger as they settle into their positions. Sir William dismounts and hands Thorin's reins to a waiting stable hand, who leads the horse away to a safer location behind the lines. For now, he will walk among his men, standing shoulder to shoulder with those who have chosen to fight alongside him. The field before them is vast and silent, divided only by the distance between two forces preparing for what comes next. Flags flutter gently in the breeze, their colors catching the light and casting soft shadows across the ground. Some are bold and bright, representing noble houses and ancient lineages. Others are simpler, worn from years of use, bearing the marks of battles fought and survived. Sir William takes a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs before releasing it slowly. Around him, the men begin to settle into their places, adjusting armor, tightening grips on weapons, exchanging quiet words of encouragement or farewell. But there is no rush. There is no need to force the moment forward. Instead, there is only this, the quiet before the storm. He walks slowly along the line, pausing briefly to meet the eyes of each man he passes. Some are veterans like him, their faces lined with experience and endurance. Others are younger, their expressions betraying the mix of fear and determination that comes with knowing they may soon face battle for the first time. To each of them, he offers the same quiet nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, of trust, of shared purpose. No words are needed. They understand what must be done. And they understand, too, that they are not alone. A few steps away, Sir Richard stands beside a young knight named Thomas, speaking to him in a low voice. Though Sir William cannot hear the exact words, he can see the effect they have, the way Thomas straightens his shoulders slightly, the way his grip on his sword loosens just enough to show that some of the tension has eased. It is a small thing, perhaps, but in moments like these, small things matter the most. The sun continues its slow descent, casting longer shadows across the field. The light turns softer, more golden, as if the day itself is trying to offer one last moment of peace before the inevitable shift occurs. Sir William looks up at the sky, watching the clouds drift lazily overhead. He thinks of home, of Lady Margaret, of his son, of the quiet mornings spent in the castle courtyard, of the meals shared around the wooden table, of the nights when the fire crackled softly in the hearth and the world felt small and safe. And even here, even now, he allows himself to carry those memories with him, not as distractions, but as reminders of why he fights, why he stands here, why he chooses to move forward despite the uncertainty ahead. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to stand firm, even when you know that anything could happen. So wherever you are, dear listener, take a deep breath now. Let your body relax a little more. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across the sky. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the quiet strength of a moment held in stillness. The silence continues to stretch across the battlefield like a thin veil, fragile yet strangely strong. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of anticipation, the kind that settles in your chest and makes you aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every thought that passes through your mind like a whisper carried on the wind. Sir William stands at the center of his line, feet planted firmly in the soft earth, hands resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. He does not grip it tightly, nor does he look ahead with tension in his jaw. Instead, he allows himself to breathe slowly, evenly, letting the rhythm of his own body anchor him in this moment. Around him, the men have settled into their places. Some close their eyes briefly, seeking a final moment of stillness before the world shifts again. Others adjust their armor one last time, ensuring that everything is secure, that nothing will hinder them when the time comes. A few exchange quiet words with those beside them, not about battle plans or strategies, but about memories, dreams, small things that remind them of who they are beyond the battlefield. A breeze stirs the field, rustling the tall grass that grows in patches along the edges of the open space. It moves gently over Sir William's face, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant rain. He lets it wash over him, feeling its coolness against his skin, grounding him once more in the present. He closes his eyes for just a moment, allowing himself to imagine something different, not the clash of swords or the cries of men, but the quiet life that exists far from here. He sees the castle in his mind, the warm glow of candlelight flickering behind wooden shutters. He hears the laughter of his son echoing through the halls, the soft murmur of Lady Margaret as she reads by the fire. He feels the weightlessness of sleep settling over him at night, the comfort of knowing that there are still places in the world untouched by war. And even now, standing at the edge of what may come next, he holds on to that image, not as an escape, but as a reminder of what he protects. When he opens his eyes again, the light has shifted slightly, the sun now lower in the sky, casting long shadows that stretch across the field like quiet sentinels. The opposing army remains where they are, unmoving for now, watching just as he watches. There is no charge, no sudden movement, no call to arms. Just the waiting. It is in moments like these that time seems to slow, stretching out like the horizon itself, endless, uncertain, filled with possibility. Sir Richard steps up beside him, his posture relaxed despite the gravity of the situation. "It always feels like this," he says quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Like we're all holding our breath." Sir William nods, understanding exactly what his friend means. "Yes," he replies. "Like the world is deciding whether to move forward or stay still forever." They stand in silence for a while longer, simply watching, simply breathing. Around them, the other knights do the same, each man lost in his own thoughts, each heart beating in its own quiet rhythm. Nearby, a young squire adjusts the strap on his shield, his fingers trembling slightly. He tries to hide it, but Sir William notices. He steps toward the boy and places a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're doing well," he says softly. "Better than I did my first time." The boy looks up at him, surprised. "You were afraid too?" he asks. Sir William offers a small smile. "I always am," he admits. "But fear doesn't mean weakness. It means you understand what's at stake." The squire considers this for a moment before nodding slowly. "I want to be brave like you," he says. Sir William kneels beside him, meeting his gaze directly. "Bravery isn't about being fearless," he tells him. "It's about choosing to stand firm, even when your heart is pounding." The boy takes a deep breath, then exhales slowly, as if trying to hold on to those words. Sir William gives his shoulder a final reassuring squeeze before rising to his full height once more. Behind them, the stable hands have led the horses away to a safer location, where they now graze quietly, unaware of the tension that surrounds them. Thorin stands among them, his head held high, his ears twitching at every sound. He senses the shift in the air, the change in energy, but he remains calm, trusting that his rider knows what must be done. Sir William watches him for a moment, taking comfort in the horse's steady presence. Animals often understand things before people do. They sense danger, they feel peace, they know when to run and when to stand still. He turns his gaze back toward the field, where the two armies remain separated only by distance. The banners flutter gently in the breeze, their colors catching the fading light and casting soft glows across the land. Some are bold and bright, representing noble houses and ancient legacies. Others are worn and faded, bearing the marks of battles fought and survived. Each flag tells a story. Each soldier carries a reason for being here. And yet, for now, none of it matters. For now, there is only this, the pause, the stillness, the quiet before the storm. A single bird calls out from somewhere beyond the field, its voice high and clear, breaking through the silence like a thread of light. It circles once, then twice, before disappearing into the golden haze of the late afternoon. Sir William watches it go, feeling a strange sense of kinship with the creature, both of them waiting, both of them uncertain, both of them moving forward despite the unknown. He takes another deep breath, letting the air settle into his lungs, letting the moment ground him once more. There will be time for action soon enough. But for now, there is only this, the quiet strength of standing firm, the gentle courage of remaining present, the peaceful resolve of knowing that whatever happens next, he is ready. Part 5. Returning home after battle, a gentle return. The battlefield has quieted now, not in the way that silence follows thunder, but more like the hush that comes after a long-held breath is finally released. The wind moves gently across the field, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and distant smoke. The sky, once golden with the light of late afternoon, has begun to darken into soft shades of lavender and deep blue. Stars blink into view one by one, tiny points of light scattered across the vast expanse above. Sir William stands at the edge of the field, his armor still fastened around him, though heavier now with the weight of the day. He does not rush to remove it, nor does he look back at what has passed. Instead, he simply breathes, slowly, deeply, allowing the air to settle into his lungs, letting his body remember that it is still whole, still standing. Around him, the men begin to move again, though not with urgency. Some kneel beside fallen comrades, offering quiet prayers or simple gestures of farewell. Others gather weapons left behind in the chaos, placing them carefully on wagons for later collection. The clang of steel against wood echoes softly through the night air, mingling with the distant sound of horses being led away from the battlefield. There is no celebration here, no triumphant cries or raised voices. Only the steady rhythm of those who understand that war is not about victory or glory, it is about survival, about carrying forward what remains, about remembering those who did not make it home. Sir Richard approaches, his steps slow but sure. His armor is dented in places, his face streaked with dust and sweat, yet his eyes remain calm. "It's over," he says simply. Sir William nods, though he does not speak right away. Over. The word feels strange in his mind, as if it belongs to something else entirely, something far removed from this quiet moment. "Yes," he replies at last. "For now." They stand together for a while, side by side, watching as the last of the soldiers begin their journey away from the field. Some walk alone, others lean on each other for support. The wounded are carried gently, their breathing shallow but present. Each step they take is slow, deliberate, not out of weakness, but because there is no need to rush anymore. Thorin waits nearby, his coat darkened by dust and sweat, his breath coming in steady exhales. He lifts his head when he sees Sir William approaching and lets out a low, welcoming snort. The knight reaches out and runs a hand along the horse's neck, feeling the warmth beneath his palm. "You stayed with me," he murmurs. "As always." Thorin nudges his shoulder gently, as if to say, "Of course I did." Sir William offers a small smile before climbing onto the horse's back. The motion is slower than usual, his limbs stiff from hours of movement, but he does not complain. Pain will fade in time. For now, he is simply grateful to be moving forward. He turns his gaze toward the horizon, where the land stretches wide and open, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. The road ahead is long, winding through fields and forests, past villages tucked quietly into the hills. But he knows every turn, every hill, every stream that must be crossed before he reaches home. And so they ride, not in silence, but in a kind of quiet companionship that only comes after shared experiences. No one speaks much. There is no need to. The night carries their thoughts for them, wrapping everything in a gentle hush that makes even the stars feel closer than before. The wind stirs the tall grass, sending waves of movement rippling across the field. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls out, a soft, echoing sound that seems to stretch through the night like a lullaby. The world feels vast yet peaceful, filled with space enough for both memory and rest. As they travel, Sir William allows his mind to drift, not toward battle, not toward loss, but toward the place that has always been his anchor. He thinks of the castle, of the stone walls warmed by firelight, of the wooden door that opens with just the right amount of pressure. He thinks of Lady Margaret waiting by the hearth, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders, her eyes searching the darkness for signs of his return. He thinks of his son, curled up somewhere near the fireplace, already asleep but still holding on to the hope that his father would come home. And he thinks of the meal that will wait for him, warm bread, fresh cheese, perhaps a bowl of stew simmered slowly over the fire. Not extravagant, not grand, but full of comfort, full of care. It is not the kind of meal that will be remembered in history books. It is not the kind of moment that will be sung about in ballads or carved into stone. And yet, it is the kind of thing that matters most, the quiet strength of returning, the gentle act of being present, the simple joy of knowing that someone waited for you, believed in your return, and never stopped hoping. A soft breeze brushes past him, carrying with it the scent of pine and wildflowers. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting it wash over him, grounding him once more in the present. He is tired, yes. His body aches, and his heart carries the weight of all that has happened. But he is still here. Still moving forward. Still going home. So wherever you are, dear listener, take a deep breath now. Let your body relax a little more. Let your thoughts drift like clouds carried by the wind. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the quiet strength of a journey taken through peaceful lands. The road continues to unfold beneath them, winding gently through the countryside as the night deepens and the world grows quieter. The stars shine brighter now, their light spilling across the fields like scattered silver dust. The moon has risen high above the horizon, casting a soft glow over the land that makes everything feel slightly dreamlike, as though they are riding not just toward home, but toward something peaceful that exists beyond time itself. Sir William rides in silence, his posture relaxed despite the weight of his armor. Thorin moves steadily beneath him, his hooves making quiet echoes against the dirt path. There is no rush anymore. No need to push forward with urgency. The battlefield is behind them now, its echoes fading into memory, and ahead lies only the gentle rhythm of returning. Around him, the other knights ride in pairs or small groups, their voices hushed if they speak at all. Some share quiet laughter, others remain lost in thought, each man carrying his own version of the day's events within him. But there is no gloating, no boasting, only the quiet understanding that they have made it through another battle, and for that, they are grateful. A soft breeze stirs the tall grass along the roadside, sending waves of movement rippling through the field. The scent of earth and pine fills the air, mingling with the distant sound of a stream trickling through the valley below. It is a reminder that life continues even after war, that the world does not stop turning just because men have fought upon its soil. As they travel, Sir William allows himself to slow down, not just in pace, but in thought. He lets go of the tension that had settled in his shoulders during the battle, lets his breath find its natural rhythm again, lets his mind drift toward the place he calls home. He can almost see it now, the stone walls bathed in firelight, the wooden beams darkened by years of smoke and warmth, the familiar creak of the front door as it opens to welcome someone inside. He imagines Lady Margaret standing near the hearth, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of his return. And then there is his son, curled up somewhere nearby, already asleep but still waiting, still hoping. He smiles faintly at the thought, letting it settle into his chest like a warm ember glowing softly in the cold night air. They pass through a small village nestled between two hills, a quiet place where smoke rises lazily from chimneys and children run barefoot through the dirt streets. A woman stands outside her home, hanging laundry on a line, her movements slow and deliberate. She pauses when she sees the group of knights passing by, offering a small nod of recognition before returning to her task. No one rushes to greet them, no one shouts or runs. Life here continues as it always does, simple, steady, untouched by the weight of war, for now. Sir William watches the village fade behind them as they continue onward, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for places like this, places that remind him why he fights, why he rides, why he carries the sword at his side. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the quiet lives that unfold in these corners of the world, lives that deserve to remain undisturbed for as long as possible. The castle comes into view just before midnight, its silhouette rising gently against the night sky, its windows glowing with the soft golden light of candles burning within. The sight of it brings a quiet relief to Sir William's chest, as though his body knows instinctively that he is close now, that he is safe. Thorin seems to sense it too, lifting his head slightly as if recognizing the familiar path home. Sir William pats the horse's neck gently. "Almost there," he murmurs. They approach the gates slowly, allowing the guards to recognize them before stepping aside to let them pass. The heavy doors creak open, revealing the inner courtyard bathed in the soft glow of torchlight. Servants move quietly about their duties, preparing for the night, unaware of the return until they notice the figures emerging from the darkness. Sir William dismounts carefully, his legs stiff from the long ride, but he pays it no mind. He hands Thorin's reins to a waiting stable hand, who leads the horse away with a respectful nod. Then, with slow, steady steps, he walks toward the great hall. Inside, the warmth of the fire greets him first, wrapping around him like a familiar embrace. The scent of roasted meat and fresh bread lingers in the air, mingling with the soft crackle of flames dancing in the hearth. The room is dimly lit, filled with the quiet hum of conversation and the occasional clink of metal against wood. At the far end of the hall, Lady Margaret sits near the fire, her shawl draped loosely over her shoulders. She looks up the moment she hears his footsteps, her expression unreadable for a moment before softening into something warm and knowing. "You're home," she says simply. Sir William nods, walking toward her with measured steps. "I am," he replies. She rises to meet him halfway, placing a hand over his arm, her fingers warm against the cool metal of his gauntlet. There is no need for grand gestures, no need for words, just the quiet understanding that passes between them, the kind that only those who have waited and worried can truly share. Behind them, a small figure stirs on a bench near the fireplace, his son, curled up beneath a thick woolen blanket, half asleep but still clinging to consciousness. When he sees his father, his eyes widen slightly. "Father," he whispers, voice drowsy but full of recognition. Sir William kneels beside him, brushing a lock of hair from the boy's forehead. "I told you I would come back," he says softly. The child offers a sleepy smile before closing his eyes again, already drifting off into sleep. Lady Margaret watches them for a moment, then gently takes the boy into her arms, cradling him with the ease of someone who has done this countless times before. "I'll take him to bed," she says quietly. Sir William nods and thanks and watches as she disappears into the hallway, the soft echo of her footsteps fading into the quiet of the castle. Left alone now, he turns toward the fire and lowers himself onto a wooden bench nearby, letting his body sink into the warmth that surrounds him. His armor feels heavier than ever, but he does not rush to remove it. Instead, he simply sits, listening to the crackling of the fire, the distant sounds of the castle settling into night, the gentle rhythm of his own breath. A servant appears beside him a moment later, offering a bowl of warm stew and a slice of freshly baked bread. He accepts it with a quiet nod of thanks and begins to eat slowly, savoring the warmth that spreads through him with each bite. There is no hurry here. No need to chase thoughts or dwell too deeply in memories. Just the quiet comfort of being home, of being among those who care for him, of knowing that, for tonight at least, the world is still. Outside, the wind stirs the leaves of the old oak tree that stands near the garden, and the sound drifts in through the open window, soft, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. The fire crackles gently behind him, sending waves of warmth across his back. Even in his armor, he feels at peace. This is not the peace of victory, nor the peace that follows war. This is the peace of ordinary moments, the kind that slips quietly into your bones and reminds you that life is not only about battles fought, but also about meals shared, laughter heard, and hands held. And as he eats, as he listens to the fire, as he lets his body relax into the quiet strength of this moment, Sir William allows himself to breathe more deeply than he has all day. Part 6. Sleeping peacefully in a medieval castle, the quiet of night. The castle has settled into its nighttime rhythm now, the kind that moves not with urgency, but with gentle intention. The great hall is quieter than it was before, the fire burning lower now, casting long shadows that stretch across the stone floor like silent companions to the night. The scent of roasted meat and warm bread still lingers in the air, though it has begun to fade, replaced by the earthy aroma of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of beeswax candles melting in their sconces. Sir William sits for a while longer, finishing his meal at a slow, unhurried pace. Each bite feels like a small act of grounding, a way of reminding himself that he is here, that he is safe, that he is home. Around him, the servants move quietly about their duties, gathering empty bowls and wiping down wooden tables, their footsteps soft against the worn floorboards. There is no rush tonight. No need to chase sleep or force it to come. Instead, there is only this, the quiet unfolding of evening, the steady rhythm of breath and flame, the gentle hum of life continuing in its own time. When he finishes eating, he sets his spoon down beside the empty bowl and leans back slightly in his chair, letting his body relax after the long day's journey. His armor still rests heavily around him, but he does not yet reach to remove it. Not yet. For now, he simply allows himself to sit in stillness, to let the warmth of the fire seep into his bones, to listen to the quiet symphony of the castle settling into night. A soft breeze stirs the heavy woolen curtains near the window, sending a whisper of cool air through the room. It carries with it the scent of damp earth and distant rain, mingling with the warmth of the hearth. Outside, the wind rustles the leaves of the old oak tree that stands near the garden, and the sound drifts in through the open shutters, soft, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. Sir William closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over him. There is something deeply soothing about the night, not just because it brings rest, but because it brings silence. A silence that is not empty, but full, filled with the quiet presence of things unseen, of thoughts unspoken, of memories drifting gently through the mind like smoke curling upward from the fire. He takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day begin to lift ever so slightly. It is time to move forward, not toward battle, not toward duty, but toward the simple comfort of sleep. With slow, deliberate movements, he rises from the bench and steps away from the table, making his way toward the staircase that leads to the upper chambers of the castle. His boots make quiet echoes against the stone steps as he ascends, each step carrying him further away from the world outside, deeper into the sanctuary of home. The hallway above is dimly lit, lined with iron sconces holding flickering candles that cast dancing shadows along the walls. The air is cooler here, untouched by the warmth of the fire below, but it carries with it the familiar scent of aged wood and lavender oil used to keep the linens fresh. It is a scent that belongs to this place alone, a quiet reminder of all the nights that have passed through these halls, of all the lives that have found rest within these walls. His chamber lies at the end of the corridor, its heavy wooden door slightly ajar as if someone had already prepared for his return. He pushes it open gently and steps inside, allowing the familiar space to welcome him once more. The room is softly lit by a single candle resting on a small table near the bed. The fire in the hearth burns low, casting a warm glow that dances across the stone walls. The scent of dry herbs and beeswax fills the air, mingling with the faint traces of smoke and wool from his travel-worn cloak. Thorin's saddle and bridle have already been returned to the stables, but his own armor remains, still fastened around him, still holding onto the weight of the day. With practiced ease, he begins the slow process of removing it, first the gauntlets, then the breastplate, followed by the vambraces and greaves. Each piece is set aside carefully, placed upon a wooden chest near the foot of the bed, where they rest like silent sentinels watching over the night. Once free of the armor, he lets out a slow breath, feeling lighter than he has all day. Beside the bed, a basin of water waits, steam rising gently from its surface. He dips his hands into the warm liquid, washing away the dust and sweat of the road, letting the coolness of the cloth wipe away the last remnants of the day's journey. He dries his face slowly, savoring the sensation of clean skin beneath his fingers. Then, with careful movements, he removes his tunic and replaces it with a simple woolen nightshirt, soft and worn from years of use. It feels like an embrace, a familiar comfort that settles around him like an old memory. As he turns back toward the bed, he notices something small and unexpected, a folded piece of parchment resting atop the covers. He picks it up carefully, recognizing the neat handwriting immediately. It is from Lady Margaret. "Welcome home," she has written, her words delicate but full of meaning. "Sleep well. I'll be nearby." A quiet smile touches his lips as he places the note aside, letting it settle into the folds of the blanket. It is a small thing, perhaps, but it holds a kind of strength that cannot be measured, the strength of knowing that even in the darkest hours of the night, you are not alone. He climbs onto the bed slowly, letting his body sink into the softness of the mattress, the layers of thick blankets wrapping around him like a warm embrace. The pillows feel cool against his skin, the sheets smooth and inviting. He shifts slightly, adjusting his position until he finds comfort, until his breathing slows and deepens. Outside, the wind continues to stir the trees, sending waves of movement rippling through the branches. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls out, a soft, echoing sound that seems to stretch through the night like a lullaby. Sir William listens to it for a while, letting the sound carry him further into relaxation. His eyelids grow heavier with each passing moment, his thoughts beginning to drift like leaves carried by the wind. He does not try to chase sleep, he simply allows it to come, gently and without resistance. And as the candle beside him flickers one final time before extinguishing itself, leaving behind only the soft glow of the fire, Sir William closes his eyes and lets the night wrap around him like a dream. So wherever you are, dear listener, take a deep breath now. Let your body relax a little more. Let your thoughts drift like clouds carried by the wind. And if sleep finds you before we continue, may it come gently, wrapped in the quiet strength of a night spent in the heart of a medieval castle. The night deepens around him now, settling into the corners of the room like a soft blanket pulled gently over the world. The fire in the hearth burns lower still, its glow casting long shadows that stretch across the stone walls and dance silently with each flicker of flame. The warmth it gives off is steady, comforting, not overpowering, but just enough to chase away the chill that sometimes creeps in through the cracks between the stones. Sir William lies beneath layers of thick woolen blankets, his breath slowing, his body sinking deeper into the softness of the bed. His limbs feel heavier now, no longer tense from the day's journey or the weight of armor, but loose and relaxed, as though they have finally remembered how to rest. His eyes remain closed, but his mind still drifts, not toward battle, not toward duty, but toward the quiet moments that make up a life. He sees flashes of memory like candlelight flickering behind closed eyelids, the laughter of his son echoing through the halls, the gentle hum of Lady Margaret singing softly near the fireplace, the way the morning sun used to catch on the edges of the castle windows before stretching golden light across the stone floor. He does not try to hold on to any one thought for too long. Instead, he lets them pass like leaves carried by the wind, coming, lingering briefly, then drifting away again into the hush of night. Outside, the wind stirs once more, rustling the leaves of the old oak tree that stands near the garden. The sound is faint, almost like a whisper, not loud enough to wake him, but just present enough to remind him that the world is still turning, that life continues even when the body rests. A soft creak echoes through the hallway, the sound of wooden floorboards shifting slightly under someone's careful steps. It could be a servant making one last round through the castle, ensuring that all doors are locked and all fires are tended. Or perhaps it is Lady Margaret, stepping quietly past his door on her way to their own chamber, pausing for just a moment to listen, to know that he is safe. He doesn't open his eyes, but something inside him shifts, a quiet reassurance, a sense that he is not alone, even in sleep. And so he lets go a little more. He lets his breath deepen, lets his thoughts soften, lets the silence of the room wrap around him like a familiar lullaby. There is no need to chase dreams tonight. They will come naturally, gently, when the time is right. The castle itself seems to breathe with him, exhaling the tension of the day, settling into the rhythm of night. Somewhere below, a dog lies curled in a patch of warm sunlight, its breathing slow and steady, its dreams hidden behind closed eyes. In another chamber, a young squire sleeps curled beneath a heavy woolen blanket, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of the small dagger given to him by his mentor, not out of fear, but simply because it feels like home. Even the horses in the stable seem to rest more deeply tonight, their bodies relaxed, their ears twitching occasionally at the sound of distant wind or the occasional call of an owl overhead. It is a night where everything slows down. Time stretches. Thoughts fade. And in this quiet space, Sir William allows himself to slip further into the embrace of sleep. He does not dream of battle. Not tonight. Instead, his mind drifts toward something gentler, toward the fields beyond the castle walls, where wildflowers bloom in summer and butterflies dance lazily through the air. He sees himself walking barefoot through tall grass, feeling the cool earth beneath his feet, the warmth of the sun on his back. He hears birds calling to one another from the rooftops and trees, their songs weaving together into a melody that belongs only to this hour. In his dream, there is no armor, no sword, no duty waiting at dawn. There is only the simple joy of movement, of breath, of being present in a world that does not always ask for strength. He walks slowly, without urgency, letting the breeze carry the scent of pine and lavender through the air. He passes through a small village nestled between two hills, a quiet place where smoke rises lazily from chimneys and children run barefoot through the dirt streets. A woman stands outside her home, hanging laundry on a line, her movements slow and deliberate. She pauses when she sees him, offering a small nod of recognition before returning to her task. No one rushes to greet him, no one shouts or runs. Life here continues as it always does, simple, steady, untouched by the weight of war, for now. He watches the village fade behind him as he continues onward, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for places like this, places that remind him why he fights, why he rides, why he carries the sword at his side. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the quiet lives that unfold in these corners of the world, lives that deserve to remain undisturbed for as long as possible. As the dream unfolds, he finds himself standing beside a stream winding gently through the valley. The water moves slowly, reflecting the sky above, catching the light of stars beginning to blink into view. He kneels beside it, dipping his hands into the cool current, watching ripples spread outward like whispers across the surface. He drinks deeply, feeling the refreshment settle into his chest, feeling the weight of the day begin to lift ever so slightly. Then, as if guided by instinct alone, he looks up and sees the stars. They shine brightly tonight, scattered across the vast expanse like tiny points of light carried on the breath of the universe. Some are bold and bright, others are softer, barely visible against the dark canvas of night. But all of them are there, silent, constant, watching. He watches them for a while, feeling something within him shift, not dramatically, but gently, like the turning of a page in a book you've read many times before. There is peace in this moment. Not the peace that comes after victory. Not the peace that follows war. But the peace of simply being, of knowing that wherever you are, whatever has happened, you are still here. Still moving forward. Still breathing. Still dreaming. And so he closes his eyes once more, letting the night carry him deeper into stillness. The night continues to stretch wide and deep, wrapping everything in its quiet embrace. The fire in Sir William's chamber has now burned down to a soft glow, just enough to cast gentle shadows along the stone walls, just enough to remind him that warmth still lingers even in the deepest hours of sleep. His breathing has slowed. His body has settled. And somewhere between waking and dreaming, he drifts, not toward battle, not toward duty, but toward something softer, something slower, something deeply peaceful. Outside, the wind moves gently through the trees, carrying with it the hush of leaves whispering secrets only the night can hear. Somewhere far off, an owl calls out, a long, melodic note that echoes through the silence before fading into stillness once more. The stars above shine steadily, scattered across the sky like tiny lanterns guiding the world through darkness. They do not rush. They do not shout. They simply exist, quiet, constant, watching over all who rest beneath them. And so does the castle. So do the people within it. So do you, dear listener, wherever you are, whatever kind of day you've had, whatever thoughts may still be lingering at the edges of your mind. You are here. You are listening. And for this moment at least, everything is exactly as it should be. Sir William sleeps now, not deeply, not restlessly, but peacefully. His dreams are soft, his breath steady, his heart quiet. He is not a warrior tonight. Not a leader. Not a protector. Just a man, wrapped in blankets, held by the night, carried gently forward by the rhythm of sleep. And if you've stayed with him until now, if you've followed him from the first light of morning to the hush of bedtime, then thank you. Thank you for walking beside him. For sharing in his quiet moments. For allowing yourself to slow down, to breathe, to simply be. Because sometimes, that is the greatest gift we can give ourselves, the permission to rest, to dream, to let go. So wherever you are tonight, take one last deep breath. Let your body sink a little deeper into comfort. Let your thoughts drift like clouds carried by the wind. And if sleep finds you before the story ends, may it come gently, wrapped in the quiet strength of a night spent in the heart of a medieval castle. And may you dream of fields bathed in moonlight, of rivers winding softly through the valley, of laughter echoing through candlelit halls, and of peace, not as something distant or fleeting, but as something close, something familiar, something yours. Good night.